The end result of compliance is maybe this artifact like a certificate or this PDF report. That's great, and that really helps the sales side. Like I said, it's just key to the door. But I think more than that, it makes you run a better company. It makes your people care about security. It makes your company care about your customers better. It's almost like the lubricant, call it, of your engine. It just helps you run a lot smoother.
Welcome to our podcast from the ground up, where we interview startup founders exploring their journeys, their success, challenges, and lessons learned. We hope you be inspired in discovering what it takes to build a thriving startup. I'm your host, Jake Aaron Villarreal, and here with us today we have Daniel Marashlian, who's the co-founder and CTO of Drata, who's raised $328 million in the last 2 years. It's a fascinating story. Let me give just a little snapshot of Drata so the listeners know. So Drata is a startup that's raised $328 million in funding. It's valued at $2 billion as a company with unicorn status and is backed by investors, prominent investors that you may know, like the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, the CEO of LinkedIn, Jeff Weiner, and many others. Drata automates the compliance journey from start to audit. Daniel, before we really dive in the company, walk us through you a little bit. How did you get into technology?
Yeah, sure. That's a fun question. Always was good at science, the STEM, right? Growing up. And I didn't really, probably almost like every other 18-year-old in the world, didn't know what they want to do with their life. And so I graduated college in high school in 2000. And the reason why I bring that up for those that remember it was called the dot-com crash of 2001. And so while I was entering college in the dot-com boom, obviously all of the news and salaries and esteem of this industry was booming. And so I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I said, hey, look, seems like a super fun career and field, and I like video games, and let's go make video games. I don't know, something like that. So that's how I got into it. And there was a good computer science program where I went to school and dove in and fell in love with it.
Proximity is always something that helps you get into whatever you end up doing in your life. Where'd you grow up?
In Sedona, Arizona, a little, hippie tourist town.
So at that time, was technology pretty prevalent? I know STEM programs were all over the US, but for you, how big was the engineering, buzz in that area?
In northern Arizona, I grew up not as big as, Silicon Valley or whatever. It's a, smaller community in northern Arizona area. But what was interesting in Sedona, I think Sedona actually had one of the first ISPs in the country, which was weird enough. It was like Sedona.net or something. I don't remember. So from early days of the internet, 94 and 5, somewhere in there, we were, hacking around chat rooms. And so, it's just kind of in your teen years, and as technology is starting to advance pretty fast, it was part of my growing up. And so it was always interesting to me. I actually always say, now that I've been doing this for so long, I can type extremely fast. But everyone, like when you were young and you would take typing lessons, if you people remember that, I sucked. I think I probably got like a C or something in typing, whatever it was. And it was AOL Instant Messenger AIM that actually forced me to type fast, because you would have these like 20 boxes open on your computer, and you'd have to talk to all your friends at the same time, and it made you start typing really fast. So yeah,
I remember those days. 100%. That's really cool. Drata is a company that you've been building. You're the co-founder and CTO of, but prior to this, you had 8 startups. And in those 8 startups, I'm sure there's a lot that you've learned that you can apply to any new company you build in the future. And Drata currently, for those out there that they're on their first startup, what are some of the things that you learned in the first 8 that have been valuable to apply today?
Well, it was the first 7. This is the 8th company, but 7, 8, whatever. Let's see. They're definitely right. There's probably some famous quote in there that I'm misquoting, but it's something about perseverance and practice makes perfect. And yeah, I think you go through lessons, you go through those journeys. I always use this example when I talk about this stuff is I remember the night I was at this very small office. It was the second company I ever started. It was a small team. It was me and my co-founder, and we actually had a remote team in India helping us build some of the extra code with me. And it was, I was more of a back end developer, but then forced to also be front end because I was, the only one. And just spending till 3 a.m. trying to figure out how to vertically center this word to an image. And it wasn't so much the one pixel that was off. It was the research and fundamentally then understanding how CSS flows work, from div blocks, spans, inline, and knowing that I had the fundamentals wrong. So that was just a silly example of staying up till 3 a.m. to move a word up one pixel on a screen, but then in that forcible function, like you start to understand the underlying architecture of certain things, and therefore that stays with you for the rest of your career, and how things are fundamentally work in underlying backend systems and architectures and servers to the front end and CSS and JavaScript.
So you understand the infrastructure behind the applications as well as the customer user interface that you're going to be typing into and looking at. Call it full stack engineer, call it
Yeah.
architect. In that process, now that you're a CTO, what I'm sure that's valuable stuff that you've learned, but in your role today, how is that experience helping you now? You have
Yeah.
built teams.
Yeah, I would say for me and my leadership style, I'm very on the battlefield with you. That doesn't mean that I'm, coding 80% of my time. To me, sadly, I'm not coding enough at Drata with the 600 of us or so. It's been a little, chaotic and busy from hiring and strategy and organization, but I still find time to code, help resolve issues, things like that. But the point of that is in the interview process of hiring leaders, managers, and obviously individual contributors, you have to be in the culture of the teams that I build. Uh, I've interviewed so many people that, and no fault to their own, their circumstance of their situation at companies you have all heard of, as a VP or someone like that, director, their role and responsibility drifted them away further and further from the keys, and they had to take on bigger responsibilities, and therefore their hardened skills softened, and that's something that I shy away from in hiring and working with me. Is that every one of my leaders can be as technical as the contributors that they tell what to do or guide what to do. So and through those experiences of staying up till 3 a.m. to move a pixel one up is when there's an actual fire on the in the software data service that you're providing to paying customers, and you're the one around, you're the one responsible for delivery, and you don't know what it is. I find a flaw in that. So I think that's a big lesson that I learned in hiring over the years, is that make sure that people are competent in technology as well as management leadership. So I would say that's a big lesson I've learned, and it's suited me well. The people that I surrounded me, I feel like I completely then trust them on the technical capability to deploy and own release, own delivery, versus obviously leading their team as well and making the right decisions.
As a founder, you always have that balance of doing it all and having control of it all. And at some point, as you evolve as a company, you have to evolve as a leader. You bring in more people, you have to let go. That might be as important as holding on to things. What's the process been like for you? You have 600 employees today at the company.
Yeah.
You can't do it all.
No,
What's
sadly,
yeah.
I wish I could. That's what eats me up every day is I wish I just had more time to be in the weeds as much as possible, say with the engineers on my side. Because there's things I see happening that, hey, this one, I don't know, feature is taking a month where I feel like it should take 2 days. And if I could get in there with them, I could show them why it's 2 days. But then you have to sacrifice that time and effort to zoom out a little bigger. So the best way I heard about it, and we sometimes talk about it at Drata, especially for the founding group, but for all the execs, is a lot of people expect us to, how do you say it? Like, I see things at 30,000 feet, right? And you can see the landscape. But then you also immediately need to be able to jump down to 100 feet, and sometimes on the ground, with the troops that are battling forward. And so I think that's been my job most recently in the past year, is being able to change altitude, from, on ground to 30,000, 60,000 feet, whatever you want to say, almost within an instant. And so that brain space of, I think that's where I've started to, if you think about, like, I don't know, from working out and training your muscles and learning how to do that, is that's what I've been training my brain to do for the past year plus, is how, within this conversation, I need to be 60,000 feet up and making a strategy decision for my whole org. And then the next call that I'm on, or Slack message I'm on 5 minutes later, it's about, like, reviewing a line of code and telling someone why we should do X versus Y.
Yeah, it's, we've talked to a lot of founders, and it seems the theme that we're starting to get a little bit more educated on is that, you have to evolve as a person. When you
Yeah.
stop learning, you stop leading, and you stop inspiring. So it's a challenge, because it's not like there's a teacher there to tell you how to do it. Sometimes you can get a coach, but at the end of the
Yeah.
day, you kind of learn as you go. How big is the team? 600 employees. How big is your engineering team?
Yeah, everyone that's in technology, which is like, product design, engineering, infrastructure security, etc. It's about 320. So about 50-ish of that is product. I have a peer, his name's Brian Elmy. He runs product here, and so he has, product, design, and some research teams, and then everyone else reports up to me. So yeah, it's about, what's that math? 280, something like that, 270. Yeah, arithmetic. Maybe that's the thing I need to practice on.
Yeah, that's a good sized team.
Yeah,
We interact with 100,000 engineers a year, whether it's messaging or emailing or interviewing. And I'm sure you'll get people that hear this and want to learn more about what you do and your company and its growth and
yeah,
whatnot. Let's dive in a little bit to the company Drata. Compliance is something that most companies fear they have to go through. Maybe they don't want to work through, but you've made it easy and you've made it automated. And for those out there that don't know, what are the areas that compliance really plays a part in as a SaaS company?
yeah. People are afraid of what they don't know, and so I was in the same boat a decade ago. And I would say two aspects of compliance, let's just say, that really help a business. One is you're going to get inundated, especially in the SaaS world and B2B world. Um, you're going to go try to sell your services to, I don't know, go name your mid-market enterprise company, from Microsoft to HubSpot to GitHub or whatever. And those buyers might love your service, and then they're going to go through the procurement process, and part of that is security, because usually it depends how deep your technology gets access to someone's data and systems, but you might be pulling in data from Salesforce or data from Git or their database or something, and so now their private customers' PII or IP of their business is in your systems, and those security teams want to understand, how do you protect my data? And a lot of times the CISOs of those chief information security officers, maybe they'll have a conversation with you and your company or your security leaders. A lot of times what they want to see is some sort of third-party attested report or certificate, and a lot of times that comes through a form of a SOC 2 report, or maybe it's a international sister as a one report. They want to understand around privacy laws, like in Europe, GDPR, or in the States, kind of California is leading the way with the CCPA, or I think they've renamed it now to like CPA. It's it's acronym soup. And there's others from government, from the NIST standards, and I can keep going on and on with acronyms. But the point of all of this is, hey, I want to sell you my services, and here's the key to the door, right? So here's a good example. If you want to sell your services to Drata, we won't even talk to you unless you have a SOC 2 or ISO cert. It's the key to the party. And then from there, we'll understand how you operate your security compliance program. And if there's further questions, we'll send you like a questionnaire, or we'll get on the phone with you. So in a way, it accelerates your sales cycles. It'll be an arrow in your sales team's quiver to go get the deal done and just move past it as a non-point. It's like, of course we care about security in your customer data. So that's one layer. The other layer is the process of running through compliance. I'll be the first to say, me running a security compliance company or product for that, it's no fun. It kind of sucks. The process of doing it. It's like gathering evidence, screenshots, meetings, Jira tickets, stuff you don't want to do. You'd rather focus on hardening and locking down your perimeter, your, systems, building better product, etc. But how are you going to help this third-party auditor assert everything that you're doing here? So that's kind of been the trend, call it, over the past 15 years, is to do it by hand and gather information, organize it for them. The end result of compliance is maybe this artifact, like a certificate or this PDF report. That's great, and that really helps the sales side. Like I said, it's just key to the door. But I think more than that, it makes you run a better company. It makes your people care about security. It makes your company care about your customers better, and it's almost like the lubricant, call it, of your engine. It just helps you run a lot smoother. So that's, I think the end result of compliance is really positive, which again is a big reason why we started this, is to make this process effortless and easy for companies alike, from small, tiny 1-2 person startups to large enterprises of 50,000 plus employees. Is how can we make the process of compliance easier so that these companies can run smoother, safer, secure, and we can build this larger web on the internet of safe company harboring and data harboring.
When you have clients like Calendly that a lot of us use, and Notion, and some of these marquee brands, and they're using your product, you start to think, okay, well, if they're that big and they're doing that well, what are they having to do when it comes to security or compliance? And, I've heard, and you've really defined it here too, is that if you're a company that sells your service, a subscription of your platform, and you want to partner with another company or integrate with another software company, or maybe utilize, your product within a bank or something, and you can't get past compliance, you're not going to sell your service or your product. We've heard so many companies that get to the final 1 yard line of actually getting $1 million deal done, and then they're stuck in 6 months of trying to get their product compliant.
Yep.
And you don't have the team to do it. You don't have the time to do it as a small company. The costs go up. You don't know who to use, who's going to be your auditor.
And a lot of times it's not even about the one-time act. I mean, that might close the deal, but then you want to renew them a year later, and you need to maintain that compliance. That's where actually the burden comes in, not the, I always kind of say it's like cramming for your SATs or something like that. But then imagine like refreshing and taking an SAT every 6 months. It's maintaining that knowledge and process in your business, not just this one-time thing you do.
So for the listeners that might be building a product or just on the outside listening to what this really all means, when it comes to compliance, you have to make sure that you have all your data secure and in order and reportable, so that you can show proof that you're in a good position to engage with your product or service. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's pretty good. A lot of times it comes down to security controls, and then you might say, Daniel, what's security control? I don't know what you're saying, right? And so think of a control as just a rule. I always like to use this example. What if your employees in a world where we have offices anymore are using their bike to drive, to ride into work? And so all these employees are starting to ride their bicycles into your office every day. And as the security and maybe risk officer, you're going, okay, like that's cool. People aren't, they're being green, but no one's wearing helmets, and that's dangerous. So I'm going to implement a rule that if you ride your bike into work, you have to wear a helmet. And so that's great. How do you prove that? So if that's a control to your company and you want to show to the board, to an auditor, that's as a measure you're putting in as an employer, how do you prove that? Well, one could say, well, I could have someone stand at the front door and mark if Bob wore his helmet or not when I came in. The other one is we could have people in the bushes taking pictures of everyone or screenshots, right? To say, the other way could be I can put a sensor maybe on the helmet, and it would automatically report in that Bob was wearing their helmet. That sounds like a much better way to do reducing human time to track proof. So that's how I think about Drata. Is there's a security control in place, and I could let's say maybe something that people could relate to, like did your new employee do security training? So you can deliver. So someone that owns the security training has to deliver that invite to that person. That person needs to do it and then have like this certificate that they did it, and then turn it in, and then we need to record it somewhere in Google Drive or wherever you record those, and then eventually organize it and report it up to the auditor. But if Drata integrates into your security training provider and can match your identities of your staff to the delivery of who's taking security and automatically pull in the certificates, no longer does the compliance and security team need to like go hunt people down if they're doing things. And if a system can remind that new employee based on the SLAs in your policy of within 3 days or 7 days or a month of starting, you need to do this. All the automatic notifications and reminders to the individual, to their managers can all be done. So all of this, workflow and human process that if you did it by hand, we're trying to eliminate all of that. So that's a tangible example of one of 100 or plus tests that we implement and integrate with all of your systems that you work. So from your identity provider, infrastructure, version control, background checks, ATMs, observability, the list goes on. I'm sure I'm missing 10 or plus, but out of the hundreds of integrations to all these common tools that all of us use, from AWS to Okta to Google to Virgin, GitHub, KnowBe4, and the list goes on and on and on. Is how do you all these tools we use to run our business and however whatever vertical the piece is, Drata will go connect to them and automatically pull in the appropriate evidence to ensure you're following your company's controls, and then automatically gather that evidence and organize it. So when it comes time for audit, it's already there. And even though I think the auditing community is great, it's kind of like, hey, here you go, auditors. Like, I don't want to talk to you. It's all perfectly organized. Do your job. Ask me questions if you need it, but it's all ready to go, right? And as you were building up that year into audit season, a lot of people call it, you were getting maybe tapped on the shoulder and saying, hey, something's wrong here with compliance. Maybe I'll mark a little ding on you, but go talk to the engineer that just spun up a database that's open up to the world, right? And so we kind of try to tap you on your shoulder. Maybe you need to pay attention a few minutes every week to it, but otherwise it should be automated for the rest.
So if you've never gone through the audit process and you have to at some point, traditionally, what's the time it takes to get compliant? If you're not using your technology, if you're just using an auditor, you're trying to follow the rules, the 500 questions you might get from a bank or from whatever third parties asking you to collect, what's that timeline and cost typically look like? I'm not sure if you can put a cost, but if you could. And then what's yours look like?
Now, obviously, it's a variety of answer based on the framework you're going after, whether it's a custom one from Goldman Sachs or it's a standard security framework like SOC 2 or something like that. And then also the complexity of your company, if you have 2 employees or 2,000 employees. But let's just average things out. I'll just use SOC 2 as an example. It's kind of starting to become the industry standard for cloud hosted data, which most of us use nowadays. And so on average, what we're seeing across our thousands of customers and surveys and everything we did before we even started the company, it's about 500 human hours to maintain your SOC 2 type 2. So real quick, a SOC 2 type 1 is a moment in time. Usually people start there. It's like, okay, I have all my, ducks in order and everything's good. And then you have this period of time. And then eventually a SOC 2 type 2 is that audit and that check over that period, which is standard a year. So over that next year, did I do what I said I was going to do? So in that SOC 2 type 2 period over a year, it's usually around 500 hours of human labor to maintain and organize and work with the auditors and get that refreshed report every year. We try to achieve to reduce that to, you know, between 30 and 50 hours, like roughly an hour a week, hopefully less. And just kind of, again, like I say, tap you on your shoulder when something's going wrong. The audit process itself, it depends on your auditor. It depends on the software maybe perhaps they use. Hopefully they just use Drata. We actually have a whole auditor alliance team on our side that works with hundreds of auditing firms around the world to train and certify them on Drata to help and save them time as well. You know, so if I actually don't know off the top of my head, let's say an audit firm is going to engage with you and they estimate it'll take 100 hours to do this, you know, like maybe 3 people on the team to do your audit. You know, we want to reduce their billing rate down to like 20, 30 hours, and therefore passing those savings on to you. So where you're maybe, you know, if you go to a top 50 firm, that SOC 2 audit might cost you, I don't know, $15,000-$20,000, depending on your size and complexity. You know, we even have like preferred pricing. We try to get that as low as possible. It again depends on the size and complexity of your company, but maybe to, you know, 12,000 or 15,000, something like that. You know, if you're a really small company and you're okay. And all audit firms, I mean, they're all certified by the AICPA, the American Institute of Certified Professional Accountants, same as like EY and Deloitte, down to, you know, your maybe like a 2-person audit firm. They're all certified by the same process. And so, you know, if you choose to go with a smaller firm, you know, maybe you can actually get it for, you know, I don't know, 5-10 grand, versus, you know, you go with like a EY, Deloitte, someone like that, it might cost you 100,000. But they're gonna, you know, in a way have a bigger stamp and thorough process is my guess. But yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with using those, you know, top 100 firms, Schneider Downs, SSF, Moss Adams, like they're all great. And so are the top ones. And
so you have the platform that you can track the data in and automate the process. But in addition to that, you need an auditor who's going to come in and kind of help.
yeah, the big pieces, like if you had nothing, right? And you said, hey, Daniel, I need to get a SOC 2 report tomorrow because I'm trying to close this $1 million deal with Bank of America, right?
Yeah.
We would probably our team and your designated CSM would work with you and help project manage it a little bit internally with you. We have expert auditors on staff. If you have complex, unique compliance questions that you can just hit up and chat, they're there for you. And, you know, we would probably target a type 1, so kind of that moment in time, and then hopefully you would negotiate with Bank of America in this case that says we're going to get that as fast as possible, and then continued on that period of time to go get a type 2 later. And usually the security teams at those companies would be okay with that. You know, it's around, what are your policies, the governance of your program. Drata comes with, and I apologize, I should know this, I think it's 22 policies out the gate. I forget if it's 20 or 22. I should know that. So it's 22 policy templates out the gate. Now, you shouldn't just take them as is. You should read them and make them your own, but they're 80+% ready for you and your company, is what I would say. So you get your policies figured out. From your policies, you would determine the controls. Now, you can bring your own controls in. You can use a standard set from some, organization standards, like there's NIST, CSF, there's a lot of acronyms, so I don't need to go into that. Or Drata has our own through a lot of experience, our advisors, our CISO advisors, as well as actually our auditing partners. In collaboration, we've all made our own, the Drata control framework, that a lot of, again, startups and even companies that have had well-established security programs, they've abandoned their own controls and have used ours. They're a little bit more. Have you ever like read a legal document and you're kind of like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
You know, we've kind of distilled
A
some of
few
that
times.
down to make it more legible and understandable for the controls. So, you know, we've done that. And so you would have your controls, and then through these third-party connections, Drata automates the evidence of those controls. And you would then invite your employees in. You know, they might have to review and accept those policies. You would let's see what would be next. Maybe do ensure you have background checks organized for your employees, and your employees do your security training, and then maybe after that is you would do like a pen test on your software if you've never done one before. And we have partners and great preferred pricing with pen testing companies. and you would kind of be ready to go in that phase. So, and then, you would engage an auditing partner that aligns to your needs of the business, which we have great partnerships with and can make introductions to. And they would do that. And that would, I think if you were doing a type 1 and it was pretty organized, it could take, 3 weeks, probably 3-4 weeks. And then, maybe a week to finalize up. And they even do their own internal audits on every report. So, I think you could probably get it like as quick as 4 to 6 weeks if you really were grinding and doing all of the steps, and you had a small company and you can corral everyone to do everything. What we're seeing on average though, for even people that are like on it in like a 100-200 person company, is maybe 3 months around there. Yeah, it really just depends how much time and effort that you're putting towards it. I've seen people do it as quick as 2 weeks. But I think it's like 3 to 6 months just based on the resources you dedicate yourself to it.
But once you do it, then the notifications are kicking in, and then it's on auto basically
Yeah,
as you go forward. So that's great. Yeah, I just, it's unbelievable to me that that's something that you really should be thinking about. I say unbelievable just because it's not the first thing you think about when you're starting to build a product. You don't think about,
yeah,
let me build a product, let me find a product market fit, let me get funding, let me hire people, let me go to market, let's hope it works. Oh, and by the way, it's working, but now we've got to take 10 steps back to make
yeah.
sure we've got everything in order so that we are compliant, so that the companies we're working with and integrating with feel like,
So what
we're at the level.
I mean, again, eighth company, I totally sympathize with the founders out there of you got to find product market fit. Don't over engineer, don't over architect things like the whole MVP or lean startup, like iterate, advance, like try to get something that shows value. If you spend all your time over architecting a solution, getting compliance from literally day zero as you're like even pre day zero, like in R&D phase, maybe it's taking too much time, right? And it's too much expense, because what if that product doesn't work? And when I say I've had 8 companies, that doesn't mean all eight were successful. And a lot of them we had I'll quote Kevin O'Leary here: "Take it behind the barn and shoot it in the head." Yeah, they didn't work after dedicating 6 or 12 months to it, and we were me and my teams were well, self-aware enough that like, yeah, this market doesn't need this, or we're not the right team to do this, or let's on to the next idea, right? Let's not dedicate 5-10 years of our lives to something that maybe doesn't work. So in that process, I get it. On the other side of building this company now, I've seen the value to doing it from day one. Not so much the output of this report, which again is useful if you're trying to go sell to Bank of America, but let's be real, you're probably not selling to Bank of America in month one of your company. So it's more about the building the process of it to instill these institutions of security within your company, to make it not this thing in the corner that everyone's scared of or they don't know how to do it. And I've seen this type, one of the most proud things I've noticed in building this company, especially with all the startups that use us, is they had that sense. They finally got that deal that forced them, to go get their SOC 2 or ISO cert or GDPR compliant, something like that. And they go through the process, and with Drata, as it shepherds them through it and makes it easy, they go, oh, that wasn't too bad. Oh, that actually was kind of fun. Oh, it's kind of like a little bit of a game. And when we fall off track, it's fun to collaborate and push each other to get back on track. And all of a sudden, in their like company values and their core values, even publicly on their website, security starts to pop up where it wasn't there before. So by showing them an easy way to do something, it starts making them think about their own, the security of their business, and most importantly, the security of their customers' data. I mean, you and me are users of those tools, Notion, Calendly, whatnot. I want my data to be safe and secure, and go name your thousands of other companies that we use. And wouldn't it be nice if there were no more breaches? So that's kind of a mission we're on.
I love it. As a company, you've raised a lot of money and you have a lot of employees today. When did you know that the product itself really had legs, that you could say, we know the demand is there, we got to build something they're going to want, but how big were you when you thought, I think we could actually take this and raise some capital and really blow it up?
Yeah. Yeah, that's you definitely need to find that right product market fit moment to then take on that risk of taking in millions of dollars from someone that you're responsible to. Um, I've built companies where I've taken venture in and we didn't get an exit and it fizzled, and I still have a you know gut ball in my stomach of losing
Gut.
friends now of mine that I've lost like $500,000 of theirs, right, as angel investors. That's horrible. I don't want to lose $500,000. So that sucks. And
Yeah.
now go to these big institutions that have connections to people like everyone, and losing their money would be even worse, right? And so you better make sure that what you're doing, there's a viable market to grow it. And then obviously it's your responsibility to make that a reality. But until you can find that point, I suggest continue to bootstrap it. So in our story, we started in the middle of July of 2020. Is that right? Yeah. Is that right? Yeah. And so it was in the right height of COVID. And it was like, all right, we had this idea. Me and the founders did a big product roadshow and talked to tons of customers or potential customers about how they're solving this problem, what tools they're using to solve this problem in the market, et cetera, et cetera. And we landed on what we built on based on all that research. And from there, it was R&D mode. You had to build the product till the end of the year. So for 5.5 months or so. And then we used it we were the first customer. We used it to get our own SOC 2 report. And we wouldn't launch the product until we had our own SOC 2 report. Because we felt that would be, I don't know, just weird. Like we're
Right.
selling compliant software, yet we're not compliant ourselves. And so, surprisingly enough, all of our competitors launched the product without their own SOC 2 report or ISIS.
Oh,
So,
wow. Really?
yeah. So
Interesting.
regardless of that, we waited, and that process took about 6 weeks or so. It also was like over the holiday period, and so people were off for Christmas and holidays and whatever. So we got it in the middle of January, and then the day after we got our SOC 2 report in hand, we launched the company, which was January 15th of 2021. And what we said was 2020 was a wash. We had some beta customers that maybe either were free or paid us $3,000 or something like that. But who cares? And the goal of 2021, which was probably a solid goal of almost any SaaS business out there, we wanted to get 100 customers and $1 million in ARR. That'd be pretty successful year one. And that happened, I think, within like 5 or 6 weeks.
Wow.
And all of us were like, holy shit, like we maybe hit the nail on the head.
Wow.
And so, through tons of iteration and communication with those early customers that we had direct Slack channels with, and wanting to, just build and iterate as fast as possible for them, it continued to come. And we said, it was funny enough, the goal was to raise an A round in like April of 2022. So build that $1 million, start the fundraising process. It takes 3-4 months, whatever. And so we did that in I forget the exact time, maybe March or April or something like that of 2021, and raised the A round of $25 million. So it was pretty remarkable that, in 4-ish months or something like that since launching the business, the company was valued at 125 million, I believe, back then. And the company prior that, me and the same founding group, it was an ed tech. It was a great company. Think of like LinkedIn for college kids. We built it up, sold it to hundreds of universities and millions of students, and it was great. And after that 7-8 years, we ended up selling for 43 million to Instructure, the makers of Canvas. So we worked with the Instructure and Canvas teams and integrated all that. And so it was like interesting. It was like over 7 years, we built an amazing company and had a great, amazing exit. And then within a 4-month window of launching our next product, it nearly tripled that value. So we knew it was the right timing. Everyone in COVID was working remote. Companies were freaking out about how to better control the security and perimeter of all these remote employees that aren't in office anymore. The news was swarming with it, from large companies to small, and so it was perfect timing. Our team was relentless in execution, so that was amazing. And I think we had, the right founding team. We all I think the founding group, we're all like yin and yangs of each other. To storm and go as fast as possible. But it also, like we started out this conversation, it wasn't a 4-month, lottery ticket that we hit. For me, I've been not only in the industry for 2 decades, but building companies since, I guess 2007, 8 or so. Is, call it 20 years of work and staying up till 3 a.m. moving a pixel.
Making
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah. And spinning up servers. And the third company I started with a group, it was called Tweet Photo 2008. And that, I don't know if you guys were ever early Twitter users, we were the ones that put photos and media onto Twitter. And back then it was just media. And so we partnered with all the application and third-party developers in Twitter, which drove the ecosystem in the early days. And, with it, I don't have stats anymore. Like, I don't think maybe people weren't tracking it, but we were probably one of the earliest companies ever to grow as fast as we did. Within 10 months of like starting a company to 10 months into the company, we had about 17 million users, and that was unheard of in 2008. So that was like 4 engineers, 4 marketing business, go to market people, 8 guys in an office cranking out, supporting 17 million users 10 months after starting the company, and just like melting the servers we were running on because of the CPU and always architecting it better. And yeah, that grew pretty big. So that grew eventually to 45 million users, and so that was super fun. So again, being inside of the data center and installing Fusion IO hard drives, which I think those are even obsolete nowadays, but those were like the Ferraris of hard drives back then. And just at the hardware all the way up to the delivery of JavaScript in the CDN, needing to understand and master it to deliver the service that you're.
A lot of companies try and build and grow and scale, and there's a lot of different hacks and techniques and ways to do it. Sometimes it's about just hiring really good marketers and a team, and they know how to do it. 17, you throw out some big numbers: 17 million users, 45 million users. What are some of the things that you've learned around just growing your user base,
Yeah.
out of the gate?
Yeah, I would say, a direct sales team's great, especially with the right leaders and process. And I think in a B company that makes most sense, and a B2C maybe not. But I think the number one thing I learned, and I'm no sales expert, right? I mean, I've learned through osmosis over 2 decades, but it's really, I think, the one-to-many, the channel sale, the business development. I love our BD leader at Drata. He's unbelievable. He's built an amazing team. And that's where I see, I told him from day one when he started, I was like, I think you and your small and mighty team will outpace revenue of our larger sales team one day. And he's on his way to doing that, which I love. And so it's about, I think, just leveraging partnerships and the ecosystem. I think especially in cybersecurity, where there is this stigma of security's hard and scary, and it's in the corner, and it's this thing that I have to do. They outsource it to integrate to MSSPs, these managed service security providers, and other people to take on these efforts. Like a lot of IT does that too. A lot of companies will outsource their IT. So how do we continue to partner with those and giant like cloud service providers like AWS and just really, I think Intuit's the Intuit venture arm is an investor in our C round, and continuing to partner with them. And as they acquired MailChimp and companies like that to better serve the SMB. And so how can we continue to piggyback off of that trend line and build software and integrations and automations for the small and medium businesses that drive America.
God, there's so much to learn from somebody like yourself, and I feel like I could talk to you all day long. What I want to go back to something you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier in the very beginning. You talked a little bit about hiring and in talking to people that you would bring on board. What's your position on remote versus on-site versus hybrid?
Yeah, that is a hot topic nowadays. I will say we would not have the success that we are in without a remote environment. So Drata is a remote company. We started, like I said, in July of 2020 in the height of the coronavirus pandemic. And we couldn't even, me and the founders that were, built a company with each other for 7 years prior couldn't even see each other. So, thankfully to the technologies like Slack and Zoom, we were able to do all that stuff. But it's interesting because I value it so much, and the culture and the tool sets and the process at Drata is remote. But now 3 years into it and 600 employees later, I strive for human connection and being in a room, not only with my fellow engineers, but with product and design and QA, and let's figure this out together. There's this product we're trying to do, or this issue, like let's whiteboard, let's solution. There's nothing that beats in person in a whiteboard. Doesn't matter how much cool technology there is, from Miro to Figma to Zoom. I love all you guys and all your amazing technology, but nothing beats a whiteboard and being in the same room. So I don't have an answer. Like I wish I could what I wish I could do is invent a teleportation machine and just teleport people into an office and then let them walk through a portal and go back home wherever they're at every day. That's what I wish I could do. But so I think though I think hybrid's probably going to be the future, but it still is going to be weird because it'll limit you on your hiring ability. So I think we have been able to open our gates around the world. We have engineers in Cambodia, Poland, Mexico, America, Canada, and it's allowed us to, I think even Uruguay and other spots, but it's allowed us to hire the best around the world that want to join our rocket ship and continue to build it, which is amazing. But to then mandate all of them move to San Diego, that wouldn't be fair. To get an office in San Diego for the roughly 70 of us out of the 600, and then they get all the 70 people get the perks and benefits and executive time that the others don't. That's maybe not fair to the others just because they happen to live in Montana or wherever they're at. So it's a tricky topic. I do like being in person, and so if Drata ever does get an HQ, maybe it's a spot where then we need to just figure out the budget, where you come in and you fly in once a month or once a quarter, and you get scheduled time with certain teams and people. That's I think what probably it's gonna be in the future for a lot of companies is you in a way reduce your large, especially as companies get really big, like 5,000 plus, and you need giant campuses, and so maybe no longer do you need these giant campuses, but you get an office big enough for 200-300 people, but then you just allocate that budget differently to fly people in once a quarter, something like that.
That's great. Yeah, there were seeing a lot of different responses of, hybrid, remote, moving back to on-site. I don't know if there is a right answer. We're talking to some, we actually have a chief people officer service where, a lot of companies they can't afford a chief people officer. So they'll bring in one of our consultants, like a fractional. Nice. And the question is, what should we do? Should we go remote? Should we stay remote? Should we go on site? And ultimately, the responses we're getting are all over the map. But I think at some point you got to draw the line and say, this is what we're doing, whether the industry is doing it or not. This is how we're going about it, and make that decision. That seems to have worked for a lot of companies from what we've seen so far. In terms of going forward, what's next for Drata? I mean, you've got, sounds like a really good company, a rocket ship. You're holding on, you're building, you're scaling. Yeah. What's next for Drata?
Yeah, for sure. It's continual expansion to new customers, to new verticals. The team has been building more features for the larger companies, while we love our SMBs and startups and that's the world I came from. So that was the product we built from day one. If you have 10 people in your company, is whether you're in the office or you're on Slack or something, it's easy to say, hey, Jake, go do your cyber training or whatever, right? Go bark and yell at you for that. But if you have 500 Jakes, it's hard to corral that. So, and the workflows you need to build to better support your 1,000-person company. So we've been really focusing on how do you make it even easier for the CISOs and GRC teams at larger companies. And those are from the tool sets and the integrations and the workflows. We've been building a lot of that and continue to. So I think that's a path forward. And I think just expanding and really making Drata just world class, and even more world class, I guess, than what we have in automation. Like my end goal is to make this 100% automated. I will never get it. It will be a asymptote is how I view it for all you math nerds out there. It'll be this exponential curve that we will never achieve, but how close can I get to the line is my goal. And so in that, it's more integrations with the more and more popular tools that not only start every day but gain popularity every day, to different ways to manage not only your compliance but your risk, privacy, security.
Got it. Really cool. Daniel, anything I haven't asked you that you want to share or you want to talk about, or have we covered everything you got in your mind today?
Yeah, we covered a lot. I would say, to all the founders of starting a company there, the only way to understand if your idea is going to work is to do it. So figure out your personal life, finances, time, allocation, family, and jump into the deep end with both feet. That's what I would say.
I love that. Daniel, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate you. And a big shout out to the listeners that are listening for taking your time to spend with us. I know you could spend it in a lot of different areas, but appreciate you joining. And again, my name is Jake Aaron Villarreal, the host of this podcast from the ground up. And I hope to talk with you again soon, Daniel, in the future.
Yeah.
And for all the listeners, we'll catch up with you on the next episode. Before we wrap up, I want to give a big shout out to all the entrepreneurs that have joined to make this podcast possible. And for all the listeners for listening. It means the world to me that you chose to spend your time with us today. I'm your host, Jake Aaron Villarreal, signing off for now, but can't wait to connect with you all soon on the next episode. Take care. This show is sponsored by Match Relevant, a company that helps venture-backed startups find the best people in the market, and they do it in 3 simple steps. First, they sit down with founders to understand their story. Second, they tell their story into multiple candidate channels. And third, they schedule interviews within 48 hours. Find us at matchrelevant.com to learn more about how we do it.